Hello and welcome to this very special episode of OneShot, our podcast from Tbreak, where we talk about everything that we can possibly cover. We talk about gaming, we talk about tech, we talk about movies, we talk about shows. But today, we are specifically talking about EVs. I'm joined by my colleagues Abbas and Sam. Good afternoon, gents.
Hello.
Hello.
And today we also have two very special guests. First and foremost, we have Salman. Salman, why don't you give us a short little hello and an intro about who you are?
Well, hello. Thank you for having me, Danish, and team. I'm the co-founder and CEO of FUSE. Me and my partner Mihai run one of the UAE's first electric vehicle retrofit firms, where we retrofit classic cars and give
Okay.
them an electric powertrain. It's pretty unique. It's one of the first businesses in Dubai to do so. And yeah,
Awesome.
we've got some exciting projects in the line.
Awesome. We'll jump into that. And next up, we have EV consultant. And we laugh about that because we were deciding what to add under his soon to be many designations. Amine, welcome to the show. If you could
Thank you.
do the same, please.
So I'm in the EV world since 2019. I'm back in Tesla in Switzerland and in the UAE for the past 2 years,
Okay.
where I was trying to lead and help companies to sell more EVs in the market. And since a couple of days or week, just decided to launch my consultancy with three co-founders to help companies to grow their businesses into the EV spec.
Awesome. I
Very
definitely want to hear more about that as well. But the reason we decided that this podcast was necessary was because Sam was recently reviewing an EV. And he calls me and he goes that, listen, I'm extremely frustrated with the entire charging experience. And I was like, that's what we have a platform for, make a video. And he does. And that video goes on our page and starts doing really well with a lot of comments. People explaining their experiences with charging over here. And I thought, and that's kind of what led us to talking about EVs, where they stand, and if someone who's listening is planning to buy one anytime soon, this would be a starting point for them. So Sam, why don't you kind of give us a quick overview of what that experience was that led us to doing this podcast?
Sure. I mean, obviously I had an EV vehicle for review, and it was a case of I'm coming from, experience with internal combustion engines. That's my experience. We have had a few, over the years for review, but it always comes back to this issue of the charging experience. I think we've come to a point where we have overcome the aspect of range anxiety. Battery
Mhm.
capacities have increased, and it's not so much how far you can go, but it's when you need to charge, especially in this region, the difficulties or the challenges from a sort of face value on paper of how many chargers, let's say, are available, or the
Mhm.
speeds of charging, versus the reality of, or at least my experience. I mean, it's if you're in that situation, then it will be more apparent.
Right.
But if you've got a charger at home, you're probably not going to face that issue, which I think a bus can pay testament to.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. I was like, Abbas, you would be someone who's completely out of the spectrum of the video that we've shown. So can you tell us about your experience? You're a Tesla owner for a little while now. Can you tell us a bit about your experience being an EV owner in the UAE?
Sure, absolutely. So, as Sam pointed out, I think having a charger at your place is super important. I generally charge my Tesla 2 to 3 times a week. I
Hmm.
don't necessarily charge it every night. There's no range anxiety. There's nothing at all like that. And if I am planning on going to the capital, to Abu Dhabi or something along those lines, then that's fine. I'll make sure that it is ready. It is a bit of a change of lifestyle that you sort of need to work around, because you can't suddenly wake up and decide that, oh, you want to take a trip to Oman, and then realize, oh, wait a minute, my EV is only 20% charge, because yes, there are a couple of charging stations on the way. It's
Right.
not like the infrastructure that you have for fuel. You just need to carefully plan that out, and then having a charger at home eases that up so much with that. So yeah, that's definitely very
Fair.
important.
Fair. So, okay. So at this point, let me talk about what sort of the UAE aims for, right? And I'll quote the National over here, and they had an article which said that the adoption of electric vehicles is expanding in the UAE and could account for up to 25% of all new passenger cars, light and commercial, by 2035. Now, while the rest of the article goes to state further things, I'd like to bring Amine over here. What do you think is the current state of EVs in this region? Do you think it is accelerating as fast as it should, or what's your general idea? Considering you're someone who's, let's say, put all his eggs into the EV basket.
It's accelerating. It went from 1% market share to almost 5% between 2020 and 2023. It's over 25,000 cars, EVs, running in the UAE, according to DIWA, in December 2023. Yes, 100%. 25% is a huge gap between what we're having today to 2025. It's 110,000 units, according to PwC report. By 2030, they want to double the amount of today. But to be able to do so, you have, like Sam said in the review, the challenges of the charging. Because today the charging, they install only 1 or 2 chargers. Only Tesla having 8 or 6 fast charger in the same location. All the other players, they do only 1 or 2. That's the biggest challenge. And not everybody is lucky as Abbas to have a charging at home.
Yeah.
Because mainly people, if you want to have the mass adoption, you have 3 criteria. The mass market cars, because today in the UAE, over 50% of the cars available cost more than $62,000, which not everybody can afford. And since January, we saw a slow in the EV sales because there is no enough supply for everyone. Tesla has reduced the productions, and new ones are coming, but it's still hard at the moment to go as fast as the UAE wants.
Right. So, Salman, let me get you in at this point. Do you see, considering that you deal with a very different side of, let's say, the EV market or the EV universe, do you see a difference in trend, or do you see the same thing?
Well, actually, these challenges that we're having are global. With EV infrastructure, especially, there's a report that came out only a few days ago in the US that it was a global survey, but the US had almost half of people, current EV users, said that they would go back to internal combustion engine purely because it's not the car, it was the charging infrastructure. So we need to do a lot to be able to close that gap. A lot more fast chargers, a lot cheaper. Usually, it's quite expensive as well. And to have a lot of slow charging. I think that's the key. Apartment blocks, whether it's a CAFU style system or any other type of solution that comes in. I mean, I'm lucky. I live in an apartment block and I have charging downstairs. My car's charging right now. But not everybody is like.
You are definitely on the rarer side, because I think everyone I talk to is like, I'm okay with electric, but I live in an apartment. So you definitely are. But please carry on.
I mean, so it's changing. I think the newer buildings now are coming up with this. I think that sometimes the government also sometimes had to get out of its own way, because with Abu Dhabi, they had earlier a requirement for example, for them registering all the points that were used for public charging or even private charging at your home, so that they could have a separate meter on it. And so sometimes it's just a matter of like getting over these regulatory hurdles themselves. And then sometimes a matter of just aiding that facilitation, whether that is giving a grant or giving an easier certification or passing for buildings that have these chargers. That these kind of things then definitely aid, I would say, the adoption, because we have the capacity, electricity wise. We have a lot of what we need. We don't have a single phase problem like other parts of the world. We have 3-phase electricity to most places. We have spare capacity. All we need to do is deploy it properly.
Sorry, if I could just ask you to give a very, very brief and simple explanation of what you just said.
Single phase versus triple phase.
Because I'm part of that audience. So explain it to people like me.
So generally, it's known that in the UAE we are not really struggling for electricity. We tend to not have brownouts or anything. At least not in the Emirate of Dubai and Abu Dhabi. There's plenty of
Okay.
energy around, so that's number one. And the second thing is most of our wiring is quite modern, and three-phase electricity is something that's used only for commercial, for like high loads. Most of our homes will come with three-phase electricity, villas and stuff. But if you look at older countries like US and Europe, usually they come with single-phase electricity, which is generally tends to have a lower capacity. We're gifted in that we have the newer type,
Right.
which enables more electricity given to the home, and therefore you can pull more out for charging your car. And so, because we have the infrastructure already in place, the most expensive part of the infrastructure, the cheapest part of the infrastructure is putting a wall socket and basically a wall outlet for you to charge. And so
Right.
that's the thing that we need to now kind of push forward on.
Fair. Fair. Abbas, sorry, you were saying at one point?
No, that's exactly it. I was telling
Oh.
Salman just to explain the single phase versus triple phase.
Fair, fair. So let me just stop this for a second here. How many EV owners here out of the five of us? Oh, three. Okay, so Abbas
There you
drives Tesla Model Y. Salman?
I drive a Chevy Bolt. I've been driving.
Ooh, rare.
Yeah, the Bolt I've been driving from 2019, and actually
Right.
before that I was driving a Zoe from 2016. So I mean,
Oh,
I've had a
wow.
long stint. Yeah.
Oh, you've like invested in this from day one, even in your personal life. I mean, what
Yeah,
about you?
So I was with the Tesla Model Y after I went to Zeekr. And now I'm expecting my new Tesla in the next couple of days.
Which one?
The Y.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. We're going back to the Y again.
Family. And mostly mine are company cars.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. So I guess Sam, you and I mean, I still struggle with it. I have a car that has a 85 dirham tank, so I don't really have to worry about this yet. But Sam, with his Nissan Patrol, might have decisions to make.
Slightly more fuel consumption.
We had this conversation, Sam.
We did.
Fair. All right. So let's assume that Sam were out there looking to buy an EV here in the UAE. Let's start with options, right? So Abbas, why don't you take Tesla? Tell us the reason you have one, why you love it, and if someone's looking to buy an EV, why they should get one.
Yeah, sure. Look, I mean, obviously, the first and foremost thing that was very important was to have a local support here. When I bought the Tesla, which was exactly 2 years ago, the options were either get an official Tesla or maybe a VW, which was parallel imported, which I was not in the market for. So obviously, I went for the Tesla. There was a wait time by the time I ordered, and by the time it came in, I loved the ordering process. There was no going to a showroom, haggling with the salesman, getting the pricing down, whatever. That's just such a waste of time, I feel. I think it's great that you just go online, select exactly whatever it is that you want. They had a couple of options. Tesla doesn't give you a lot of options. Change the color, change the inside color, and then add autopilot and stuff like that. So went ahead, configured the car that I wanted, and roughly 4 months later, got the call that, hey, the car is here. Let's get the process of financing and stuff started. Did that and got that done. So obviously having a local warranty, local servicing was important to me. But saying that, it's been 2 years now and I haven't had a single service on the Tesla. I still have, I've rotated the tires once, but that's about it. The car is supposed to let me know if anything's wrong with it for me to sort of do that. It hasn't done anything so far. So alhamdulillah, it's working out great. No issues, whatever with that. The second reason why I chose Tesla was I'm a techie. And to me, software is more important than hardware. And Tesla just nails it with that. Every few months, every quarter, there's a good software update that adds new features to your car. It's such a change of the way where we buy a car and it comes with the feature set that you bought it with. With EVs, I think the fact that they just push new features, for example, Tesla just introduced automatic parallel parking to Model Y. That was not there previously. It came in just, a month and a half ago. Adaptive headlights, that came in a software update as well. So you do get a lot of these little things. Audible was added for ebooks on the software side. So I love that experience. For me, software is more important than the hardware. Obviously, you want something that's reliable. The car looks fine. I don't think it's a head turner, but it's fine. I mean, I like the way it looks. It's not a Mercedes or anything at all from that perspective, but it's fine.
Okay.
Those are my reasons.
Fair. So since we have 5 of us, for every brand we discuss, let's play a little game. Teslas. Does everyone agree with Abbas? Should Tesla be like, I don't know, number 1 or number 2 on everyone's list? Let's vote.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. Okay, 5 on 5. So in my opinion, the Sam and Abbas know this. The Tesla is a bit too alien for my taste. It's everything that they do is just so out there. Especially interiors. The interiors drive me mad. They just drive me absolutely nuts. I like buttons and toggles and things like that. So but that being said, the only reason Tesla will always be something I suggest is because of its infrastructure here in the UAE. I mean, I'll go as far as to even suggest a Cybertruck to someone if they can afford it. But yeah, that's kind of my take on the whole thing. Anyone got anything to share about Tesla? Yeah, sure. Amine, go ahead.
Like Abbas said, Tesla they nailed the software, and that is no doubt is the best software in automotive for the past maybe 5 years, and still growing and growing. The difference between Tesla and the automotive manufacturer is they created the car around the software.
Right.
The others, they create a car and they put the software inside.
Right.
That's the main difference between both. So yes, it's not personal. You don't have buttons. You don't have anything.
Yeah.
That's Elon Musk vision.
Fair.
And what's made Tesla successful today is because they have Elon Musk.
Okay.
Mercedes don't have Elon Musk. Nobody has Elon Musk. But it's software first. He's a software engineer.
Right.
Software first, and we build the car around it.
Interesting.
That's the main difference between the others.
Salman?
I mean, I think I kind of go with what you said, Danish. Honestly, for me, the car is it's vanilla. Vanilla is plain ice cream,
Yeah.
But I think what the only reason that I would suggest it here, and this is the unfortunate situation, is because they have the most robust independent charging network right now.
Right.
And in that they're unparalleled because of 2 reasons. One is it's exclusive to Teslas, and I don't think that they allow commercial use right now, which is such a huge problem for the rest of the charging infrastructure that is there. And then the second thing is, of course, the number of superchargers that they have. They have it in way more convenient locations and in way better, places. I saw the other day in a mall which primarily has a cinema, because you're going to be there for an hour or two watching a movie. You might as well charge your car. So in that sense, very well thought out. And I think that's really the main reason for me to recommend people to Tesla.
Right. Yeah. Tesla definitely gets credit here in the UAE for just how well they set up. But anyone got anything to add for Tesla, or can I move ahead to the next brand?
No, for the charging infrastructure, Salman, you're right. And in Europe, it was the exact same thing. Tesla was the charging; it was only for Tesla. And at some point, they opened it for the others.
Yep.
The day they open it for the others, that will be a game changer into the EV industry, because we have no reason to choose Tesla over the other one for the charging, at least. If you're like a software-oriented guy, you will go for Tesla. Otherwise, you will look at all the options on the market.
Correct. I agree, because I will use that to go to my next brand, which is Zeekr. And I want to go to Zeekr because in Sam and my opinion, it is the polar opposite of Tesla. Literally just like flip the entire conversation around, change all the yeses to nos, and you've got Zeekr. So Sam, why don't you quickly introduce the brand and tell us about your experience with the X and the 001?
Yeah, so Zeekr is obviously sort of a new brand in the region. They've got 2 models that are available. The 001, which is sort of a Model S sort of size, as well as this, which is the Zeekr X, sort of Model 3-ish. It's obviously owned by Geely. I always pronounce it wrong. It's EV only, but as you said, it's the flip opposite. You've got super premium materials, micro suede, leather. You've got more screens than you can keep your eyes attention to, heads-up display and all of that, and obviously the design. I really like the X. It's like it stands out. It is a head turner. I got a lot of attention in the vehicle, and from an automotive standpoint, like physically the car itself, it feels super premium. It's really really nice. But then the other side is the software standpoint. I didn't
Right.
face any sort of niggles or whatnot with the X, but I think once the brand launches their profile and the app, a lot of those things will get resolved. But
So,
the
so just to
frequency of the
clarify,
updates.
for people listening, you didn't get to experience a bit of the software side because the review cars that we had weren't quote unquote localized, and you didn't have a profile and things like that. You didn't get to test some of those features.
So the X specifically, this car is not even a GCC spec car as far as I'm aware. They were European spec cars for the
Right.
region. So there isn't the local app wasn't there. So, your climate control, your seat position, all of those, functionalities that come with the application side of it wasn't available. But from a software configuration standpoint of it not having the app, it performed as a traditional car you would expect. Whereas the
Right.
flip side with the 001, weird things like when you get in the vehicle, the AC would be blowing everywhere except for your face. I know Abbas mentioned it will, cool the cabin down and then, focus
Yeah.
on the passenger. I think you probably die before it actually starts to blow on your face. That's how hot it got in the vehicle. So little niggles. So you can't say that's the vehicle because again the
Right.
application
Of course.
isn't there for all of those functionalities to work. But as a vehicle itself, really really nice. Really
Fair.
nice.
And on the range, where did X and 001 stand compared to, let's say, Model Y or Model 3?
So range-wise on the X, from what I remember, had about 400 kilometers of range in
Okay.
like real world scenario. They have a really nice feature where it shows the hypothetical as one option, and then based on how you're using the vehicle, it will then show you what your range is.
Right.
And with the 001, it's got a 100 kilowatt hour battery, 620 kilometers of claimed range. So, I mean, when you got that kind of battery capacity, you don't need to worry. I'll go to Abu Dhabi, I'll come back, you can go again.
Right.
No issues in that regard.
I drove a
Fair.
Zeekr for 5 months.
Okay.
001,
Which one?
the
Okay.
001, the one who claiming 620. I used to go back and forth Abu Dhabi twice without charging.
Nice. Up and down Abu Dhabi. So that, for listeners who don't know, that would be an average of up and down twice would be about 600 kilometers.
Roughly, I did 590 to be exact with the car,
Okay. Fair.
and I was at 1%.
I
Also,
don't
was that
know.
in
Accurate
summer or
range.
winter?
It was March, April.
March. Yeah,
On-
because
on
I've
the-
noticed with
on
the
the car.
Tesla that in summer, as you mentioned, battery goes down a lot faster. Obviously, the AC is blasting a lot more, so I
Right.
get a lot less range in summer than I do in winter.
But Salman might answer this better than me, but the optimum temperature for an EV is between 20 and 30 degrees.
Yeah,
That's
usually
the
they tend to be they actually tend to like warmer temperatures up to a point. It's known that superchargers. So before Tesla goes into a supercharger, usually they preheat the battery so that they take it in. But that's not always the case. It all depends on the outside temperature as well. But that's a US thing that happens.
Right. So again, this comes back to Abbas's point about the fact that it's a whole other mentality and there is so much learning. But Salman, have you experienced Zeekr vehicles?
No, I have seen them. I quite like the look of them. I think they're
Yeah.
quite cool. And I think we could use a lot more brands like Zeekr
Agreed.
coming to the region. So, the more entrants there are, the better it is, of course.
Agreed, because this is something that Abbas and me, like rather us in the team, have noticed is that when Abbas was buying his Tesla, there really weren't that many options, and today, even though the Tesla still sort of wins because of software and charging network, there are at least other options for people to check out. Like, for example, I absolutely adore the Polestar. I love Polestar as a brand. Its interiors, its drive style, it's everything. I love it. We had the Polestar 2, Sam.
Yep, it was the two.
We had the
I
Polestar
think
2.
I think to your credit, it's because it's a car. It's literally a traditional car with a driver-orientated cockpit, a very familiar environment. So it's not like a Zeekr or a Tesla being that like
No, see, I mean,
minimalist.
listen,
No?
a Zeekr is still quite quite a bit like a normal car, but I think just the Polestar in general, because I like that entire design language. I've liked Polestars, obviously I like Volvos and so on and so forth. So I think that that's there. And yes, to answer to agree with what you're saying, yes, the fact of how close it feels to a car, that appealed to me a lot. But the only reason, and to be honest, they even have some great deals right now for leases and stuff to make it very affordable. But yes, that's the bigger appeal for me, that it's very close to what I know and like. And like, if I don't know, my mother-in-law sits in the car, she wouldn't be like, okay, how do you open the door, how do you unlock it, and so on and so forth. And I know these are all small things to learn, but yeah, I really really like the Polestar.
Funny enough, Danesh, you should jump in the 001 from Zeekr.
Yeah, I know we did.
Zeekr produces all the Polestars and the Volvo Electrics.
Oh,
Is the same mother company, is owned by Geely, and the
Yeah.
manufacturer, the platform is owned by Zeekr. Is Zeekr platform for all the Polestars. So the new Polestar 3
Really?
is coming out from a Zeekr factory.
How interesting. Did not know that. Did not know that at all. That is very cool. So the platform is the same.
The same one. So the X and the Volvo XC30, same platform.
Okay. So, I mean, in that, now your turn for a definition. For people who don't know, when a salesperson or their friend or someone says platform, what does that mean in
So
the
basically,
world of EVs?
they use the same machine, the same manufacturer, the same product to build the car.
Okay.
It's just the body and the interior.
Can you give another example of something
The
that's built on
chassis,
the
for
same?
example, the chassis on the 001 and the Polestar 3 are the exact same one.
Okay. Any other brands that do the same in EVs?
In EVs, now you have more joint venture coming out. So you have Stellantis, who just partnered with Xpeng, for example. But that used to be done in the ICE, in the classic cars. Like, for example,
Right.
Audi Q8 and Lamborghini Urus have the same platform, the same chassis, for example.
Okay.
So basically, when there is a mother company owning, for cost purposes as well,
Of course.
they try to share the same products.
Right. Fair. All right. That is definitely very interesting to know, because the Polestar 3, I think, comes out by end of year, right, Sam?
Yeah, it's expected by the end of the year, I think.
It's expected. And Polestar 3 is the one without the...
It's the very
rear.
interesting looking rear.
Yeah, the one without
glass.
the rear window, right?
Yeah. No glass.
Only a camera.
You can also Google Jidu, which is also a joint venture between Geely and Baidu. Baidu, which is the Google of China, and Geely owned Volvo. It looks similar to the Polestar 3 and the 001.
Chinese mass production at its best.
They are coming heavily in the market. I think it's 6 or 7 different brands coming to the UAE before the end of the year.
Wow. 6 or 7 coming, new brands.
New brands.
Wow.
Brands, no models.
Yeah.
Brands.
Wow. That's very cool. All right, so moving forward, I thought we could quickly go through the luxury segment, right? Now, this is not a segment that is often discussed because, well, it's one of those things, right? Someone who knows they want a Porsche. It's not about EV or not EV, right? So let's start with the Taycan. Now, the Taycan was fun for us because we had it for 3 days and all of us wanted the car for review. So we were literally, Sam, you and me met outside Abbas's house at like 11 in the night or something to swap cars.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did. But I think we had a really great time with the Taycan. Since you both sort of reviewed it, Sam, what did you think of the Porsche-ness and EV-ness coming together?
So basically, if you want that Porsche experience and it needs to be an EV, the Taycan definitely delivers. But I would say
Okay.
it's sort of that like 1.0 product. I would say it'd be a much smart approach to have a 911 and a Model 3 or a Model Y on the driveway than just having the Taycan itself. I mean, it came back again to the charging experience. Like Porsche had their own charging, facility on site. The DB wasn't working. The security ended up having to turn and off the charger like 3 different times to get it going. So that is it in a nutshell, and it's again doesn't offer those benefits of a Tesla from the charging network and of all of those aspects, but handling wise, characteristic, that Porsche feel DNA, 100%. It was fantastic in that regard.
Sam, if I may,
Abbas?
for the just if I may, just about the charging in
Sure.
Porsche. If you can afford a $500,000 EV, you don't live in an apartment. So charging should not be an issue.
Sure.
True, but when it's one of those things,
You might live in
of-
Burj Khalifa.
exactly, and it's not just about that. It's not about
So
it's about the fact that for example, the car we drove was almost $1 million, right, Sam? 880,000 was the top spec.
It was just no, it can range a ridiculous amount from an entry-level
Point
Taycan.
being, if you're crossing $500,000, the barrier of $500,000, you should not be having these little things to worry about, right? That's the way that I look at it. That if you sell me a car for 150,000 dirhams, okay, no problem, fine, give me 5 issues, no issues. But when you come to that level and you're saying that Porsche went EV and we give you this and we give you performance and we give you comfort and 3 displays and luxury. Oh yeah, by the way, our range isn't great and we don't have enough chargers. Yeah, that's, it just shouldn't be there. But
And specifically to that, it was a case of I'm looking at it as being Porsche's ecosystem. You're talking about a dedicated charger on Porsche's facility to charge Porsche's vehicles. We're not talking about a third-party infrastructure of saying this was their experience. So if I'm a Porsche customer, I'm going to expect that Porsche level of service. I shouldn't experience that. But I agree. Like I say, if you're in a villa, it's not an issue, but we have a lot of expensive properties available that's, apartments.
Yeah, so that's definitely there on the Porsche front.
I want to just sort of chime in real quick on this as well.
Go ahead.
No, absolutely. So look, the car that I had before the Model Y was a Cayenne, and absolutely loved the drive of it. I still have it, and every time I sit in it and drive it, it's a completely different thing, right? Yes, the Tesla can pick up faster. It has a faster acceleration, but that drive of a Cayenne is just superb. To me, that would be the ideal EV, a Cayenne EV, which I know they're working on. But I think as far as the Taycan is concerned, Sam's absolutely right. It was a very 1.0 product. It didn't even offer over-the-air updates, at least when we had gotten it for review. They said that you need to bring it into the service station to update it. So I think it's just something that Porsche will get right over the next. I mean, the Macan is coming up as an EV, and then Taycan is going to follow after. Cayenne is going to follow after that. So I think by the time they get there, if I'm ready to upgrade, who knows? Maybe that might be the one that I jump on too.
Car number 4, Abbas. But
if you take the Taycan, take the Gran Turismo. You have bigger range, more room, more power. And just on a few points. On over the air, for example, is not Porsche issue. It's a UAE government issue. So basically, for data storage. So you have to have another kind of homologation and authorization from the government to be able to store data. You cannot store data outside of the country. And as of today, most of the manufacturer, except Tesla and Zeekr, as of today, they made the all requirements to have the homologations. All the rest, they're outside of the country.
That's interesting. Didn't know that.
That's also a big issue for the for all the apps to access the car. Is data? Is where do you store your data? So they don't want the data to be stored in China or in Europe or in the US or whatever country. They want it to be stored in the UAE. And not everyone is willing to invest in this because we are a small market. We are not the US,
Right.
we are not Europe, we are not China. So there are small markets.
It was the same thing why OnStar took so long to launch.
Yeah,
It comes back to the
correct.
data issue. Because Saudi's customers and all of that data has to remain in Saudi, vice versa for UAE and all of the regions. But I didn't realize it was there for the OTA updates as well.
That
Because
makes
it's your
sense.
data stored somehow. And
Yeah.
to go back to the first question for the mass adoptions, government has to do things, to put things in place to smoother and to facilitate all those for the brands and the consumer, like the charging for Abu Dhabi, or the brands to be able to have the full experience on the apps, the OTAs, or the over-the-air updates, or anything that's related to data.
Fair. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, I think that the government is the only thing I can say about the government, as far as EVs are concerned, is I think that there seems to be a disconnect between the brands and the government. I feel like the government says a bunch, the brands say a bunch, and just in between is the customer who's like, don't know who to believe. That we're expecting to see these many, let's say, chargers, but that doesn't happen. And I think that's where there's a sort of big disconnect, because that's one of the reasons I wanted to continue talking about the luxury segment, which is that, let's say, the Mercedes, the offerings that they have, right? Mercedes has some really nice offerings right from their first offering, which was the EQS 400. I loved driving that car. It was absolutely fantastic. But Mercedes themselves had no chargers in the market at that point. And yet they were charging something on the lines of like 450,000 dirhams for the car. So I think that that's a generic problem that's going to exist for a while, because the overall market is in Gen 1. So I think that that's just going to keep happening for a while. But anyone driven any Mercs over here? Any Merc EVs?
Not as a daily drive, but as a test, like most of us, I guess.
Fair. Abbas?
Yeah, I've driven the EQS.
Right.
It's really nice. I mean, it's just unbelievable from a finishing luxurious perspective.
Right.
Loved that car. Yeah, just amazing.
Yeah, it was really, really good. I think that even the new G Class, even though everyone's talking about its stupid spinning thing that it does, I think the new G Class is definitely very, very cool. But again, Sam, do we know the price on the G Class for the UAE?
A lot.
Fair. But I think it's super cool. I was actually wondering, you know how when what's the Bentley four-wheeler? Bentayga?
Bentayga, yeah.
Yeah,
Bentayga. When the Bentayga had come out, the first one went to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed, and there was a picture of him with it, with the number 1 number plate. And like everyone lost their mind, like, oh my god, is it the end of Mercedes for the royal family? I wonder if like the EV version will come with like a 1 for him or something on those lines. I literally have been like very curious to see if that's going to happen for the G Class, because I think that would just confirm 100 purchases for the G Class in the region.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, the other big launch that was there recently with EVs, again, don't know if anyone's experienced it, was the Hummer EV. I haven't driven it. I've sat in it stationary multiple times, but I haven't driven it. I've heard crazy things. Anyone excited for the Hummer EV? Or seen it on the road, actually?
I heard a
Yeah,
lot
I've
of
seen a
bad
bunch of
things.
them.
A bunch of them.
Yes.
Oh, fair enough. Fair enough. Any thoughts?
I didn't drive it myself. I just sat in it like you did. I didn't drive it myself. The feedback I have from the people that drove it for a couple of days, not practical.
Okay.
The range is too low. The car is too heavy. The handling is very bad. The car is like more than 4 tons.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Fair.
think that's the same thing from
Can you
my
drive?
side as well.
Can you drive it with your normal driving license? It's 3.5 tons, the driving license. the B driving license.
Interesting point. Salman, you were saying?
And it's the same thing. The car we saw it in Liva last year, doing
Okay.
the
That's where I
run,
saw
and
it
it's
as well.
extremely powerful car, right? It's 1,000 horsepower, but unfortunately,
Right.
it's lugging around 200 kilowatts of batteries. It's not going to go very
Mm.
far. And unfortunately, it didn't go very far or very fast.
Fair. So, Salman, then let me ask you a question. Do you know who Jerry Rig Everything is?
Yeah, of course, the Hummer that he's made, the old one.
Have you watched the whole season? The
Yeah,
whole
yeah. I've watched.
because
I watched.
his season 2 is coming out right now, and I want to know your thoughts. Do you think, one, could you do it? Two, what did you think of his Hummer EV that he made
So
himself?
he was very interesting. He used a very special kind of motor. It's made by a company called Danfoss, and they're, if you don't know them, it's okay. You forget. Most people
Okay.
don't, but they're very well known in the pumps industry. So all of the water that you guys are all getting in your apartments, usually the pumps for these are come from Danfoss, so extremely reliable company, and they make like military spec motors. So it's very apt that he used a motor like that, which costs. I think the motor alone cost him 100,000 dirhams. So he put
Okay.
that motor into that kind of vehicle, and I think he had a failure on his prop
Yeah.
shaft because the the motor was fine, but it was the prop shaft couldn't handle it, so he had to actually go and make a new one. I mean, that's an
Correct.
extremely capable car. That is a true, I would say, if you had to look at Hummer as an electric vehicle, a true homage to that brand is
Hmm.
what he's done over there with the battery
Okay.
setup and all of this stuff. And yeah, absolutely, it's not a problem. Like we can do that and more. We know exactly, making vehicles like that. But I think he's done an extremely good job.
Fair. Fair. At this point, I have to unfortunately sign out Abbas because Abbas has things to do more important than his podcast apparently. But but Abbas has to bounce. But yeah, Abbas, we will see you around.
Yep, absolutely. And I was really enjoying this conversation. I would have loved to stick around, but my 10-year-old has a different agenda for me. So unfortunately, I'll just catch the rest of this podcast once you guys are done recording it. Very nice meeting you, Salman and Amine. Thank you very much again
Thank you,
for
too.
here.
Likewise, man.
And yep,
Likewise.
absolutely. We'll catch up some other time. Take care, guys.
All right, so taking it forward from there, I was curious, Salman. Everything we've discussed till now is, let's say, made for us, right? The brand, what the brand offers, price, etc. It's all made for us. You're in a very different sort of space. You take vehicles. You've showed us the Mercedes that was being discussed earlier. I'm guessing that's the same Merc, right?
Yeah, we have three of them, so it depends. It could be. It could be.
Fair. You've showed me a Merc. That was a classic one that you're converting into an EV. You've showed
Yeah.
me the Bug, the Volkswagen Bug, right?
Yeah.
And all these are cars that people own, and they've come to you and said, "Hey, can you make this an EV?" Right?
Yeah. Well, but yeah, a bunch of them. Yeah.
But like I'm again trying to keep the conversation simple here for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But in this sort of space, what have you seen in the past few years? What is your experience been like? Are we talking rich people with lots of money? Are we talking enthusiasts? So what is the kind of reaction or that you're seeing in this market?
I think it's more than anything, it's the need for people to be different because the car scene, not just the
Okay.
EV scene in the UAE is maturing.
Right.
So, well, 5 or 10 years ago, we might not have had that specific, we would have a supercar club, but we might not have had a club for Jeeps, and
Right.
specifically the TJ. I am part of a TJ
Okay.
group. So it's just towards that specific model year.
That is
And
a
so the
great
scene
car to
itself is,
swap to an EV. Sorry, because it always leaks oil. If it doesn't have
we
oil,
have,
even better.
we've had that problem. So we'll come back to that. But yeah, so the issue that we're having is the TJ was a Jeep that was made from certain year to certain year. I think it's maybe in the 2000s, and
Okay.
uh, so there's a group just for that certain type of model year of Jeep.
Right.
And they just talk about parts and trying to find like modifications for them. And so what I'm trying to say is the scene itself for cars is maturing to the point where you can find your little niche and be there.
Right.
And that just stems from us wanting to have cars as part of our extended personality. And so what
Mhm.
we do is part of that. It fits into the fact that you want to go EV, you want to be a sustainable guy, but you don't want to be seen as the guy that just bought a Tesla or you just bought like, what's on the shelf. And we can offer that for you, that whether, if first of all, if you have a classic car and you want to make it electric and you feel like it's your conscious thing to do for the environment, we can help you with that. And the second more interesting thing is, if you want a car that has a unique look, that has the look of a classic car, because the designs nowadays are so driven by wind tunnel testing that almost all of them look the same. The Polestar, while it's quite unique
Mm-hmm.
to look at, is almost the same wind tunnel wise, and in terms of the general profile, as maybe a Tesla, as would be, a Kia or something like that. Back in the 60s, you would have extremely unique designs. We can bring that to the current, let's say, the current powertrain and the current way of operation, but without the hassle of dealing with, the unreliability of 60s and 70s cars. Let's
Right.
just call it. So you have a very, very reliable experience that you can get in, you start your car, it will definitely go. The engine, the AC will always work in the summer. And so you're bringing a whole bunch of people that would never have considered a classic car into classic car ownership. And
Right.
that's mainly what Fuse is looking at doing. But
Okay.
beyond that, of course, we have our commercial side. But purely when you look at classic cars and the structure of ownership and what people are looking for, this is what we provide.
Right. So on the commercial side, you had given us a very, when we had first come to the Fuse, I don't know what to call it, warehouse, shop,
Lab.
showroom,
Yeah, we call it a we
lab.
call it a workspace.
Okay, a workspace, a
I like lab.
workspace. So when we'd come there, you had told us that you're working with a company where you took old uh,
Toyota
pickups,
Hiluxes.
They're the
Hiluxes,
Hilux pickup.
right?
Hilux pickup. Yeah.
And the first thing obviously we asked you was, oh, what's the range on the car? And you were like, it's just 150 kilometers, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and can you tell us about that use case, because you ended up telling us how this car for them basically becomes a forever car. So could you tell us a bit about that experience?
Sure. Yeah. So that was actually done as a project that we're working on with an NGO called
Okay.
ITDC. Now, these guys trying to better lives, in countries that are impoverished. So in this particular case, this pickup truck is going to Yemen. And what we
Okay.
designed for them was quite unique, because rather than actually electrifying the car in the workshop, which we did, of course, initially, what we're providing to them long term is a EV in a box solution. So essentially, have
Hmm.
all the major components of the car, your battery, your motor, everything in places where the old fuel tank and engine would have been. And so essentially, you receive this box with
Hmm.
instructions, a video, and
Hmm.
support from us. And what you can do is, in the matter of within a day, we clocked 5 hours, but
Okay.
your mileage may vary. You
Right.
can essentially take out the old. You can take out the old powertrain. You can swap in our powertrain. And your car is ready to go as a 100% EV.
Okay.
Um, with the added reliability of basically making an EV. And it was built with that use case in mind, of the villagers that are looking within Yemen, with a certain part where they're looking to
Hmm.
go from the market to their village, and for them to be able to do their grocery runs, and for them to be able to have jobs and have transport. And for that purpose, it was extremely well suited. And so we developed a
Hmm.
product specifically for them, and they're quite happy with it.
And what
Trying
does
to bring
someone
that
do
to
in
the
this?
price point that they're happy with.
Right. But what does someone do in a scenario of charging or maintenance in a case like this?
So the it's a two good questions. In terms of maintenance, the kind of motors that we use are extremely low maintenance, so
Hmm.
there's really no real need for maintenance. And if it comes up, we have a VCU that we've developed and built that can send the error code out, that then we can diagnose and remotely tell you what the problem is.
Okay.
Second thing is, when it comes to charging, the company that we're working with there, which is ITDC, they're actually utilizing a solar panel deployment that they already have on
Okay.
site. And they're using the excess electricity that they have there to then power this vehicle for its charging. That's the idea behind it. Because they're already using one for a solar water pumping station, and they're using the excess
Right.
electricity from that to charge this. The pilot project might be
Fair.
slightly different, but that's the long term goal.
Fair enough. Interesting. Definitely very, very, very interesting. So, okay, what I want to do now is, we've discussed a lot. We've discussed doing it yourself. We've discussed luxury. We've discussed range anxiety, charging problems, what government should be doing, and so on and so forth. Now, for the people who put the effort of listening to the podcast all the way till here, I want to bring it all sort of funnel it down to what they should be looking at. So let's first and foremost, Sam, maybe tell us if someone is only looking at range and charging, what are the things they should be considering?
Only range and charging.
Like they're not looking at design or interior or anything like that. So what would your suggestion be if a guy comes to you and says, "Listen, I have to do X amount of kilometers, and I live in a building"? What would you tell him or her?
Oof, I think I can't say you can break it down like that as such. I think one
Okay.
thing to look at from a range standpoint is,
Okay.
I think there had been some studies done that showed the vast majority of potential customers for an EV overestimate their requirements on range. That's
Okay.
one thing to kind of look at and really break down, further from there. And then I guess with vehicle, if you're looking at, okay, just the range aspect, is say the cost. If you're looking at something from a cheaper standpoint, I'd say maybe look at the Atto 3. It was 130, 150,000 dirhams or something. Decent
Right.
amount of range. That's something to look at. But then obviously if your requirements go higher, from the range standpoint, you're going to be looking at a bigger vehicle overall, battery costs increase, the overall cost of the vehicle is going to increase. So it's somewhat of a complicated thing to break down,
Fair. Okay.
unfortunately.
So fair enough. In my case, I think what I would kind of suggest to someone who's concerned primarily is, I think that right now people can only choose one of two things. They can either choose, if they have charge, let's say they live in a villa or a building that allows charging, great stuff. You don't need to worry about range too much unless you're obviously driving to Abu Dhabi every day. But I think that for people who can't charge, then you have to be aware of battery sizes. You have to be aware of how the car handles, like check on what kind of testing the car has done, right? Now for Tesla, you'll find that out. But for the Volkswagen in the gray market, you most probably won't, right? So I think that this is the kind of information that people should be aware of. But Salman, Amine, any advice you'd have for someone as far as range and charging would be concerned?
I mean,
Sorry,
if I can
I
speak for
can go if you.
myself.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, you can. So when you look at EV cars, I think most of the offerings are pretty good, pretty reliable, and now quite fairly priced. You can get anything. And I think to Sam's point, charging at home where you are is extremely important, even if it's from a 3-pin plug.
Right.
Even that can add enough over time that if you're not going to drive, more than 200 kilometers in a day, you'll be fine.
Right.
But the trouble comes in when you don't have access to a charging point in and around your home. And I think that right now the situation will change in a year or two. We're not quite there yet because in Europe they have 350 kilowatt chargers, single gun 350 kilowatt chargers, and they have cars like the Porsche Taycan that can take in 275 kilowatts, right? And so what you end up in a situation where if you were to take that Taycan, charge it or a cup of coffee in let's say in 2 to 3 days, or once every 2 to 3 days, you'd be fine. That we're not quite there yet in terms of our infrastructure. Our fastest chargers, single gun, are usually about 175 kilowatts, and so we have a little bit to go until we reach that point. And then when we reach that point, I think we can have this conversation of, oh, can we go with a car? Can we go with something that we only charge outside, or
Right.
even if we don't have something at home?
Yeah, so Sam and me had discussed this. Funny enough, unfortunately, it was a video that we didn't publish due to many other reasons, but we had actually gone out once looking at chargers. And one of the points we discussed was that it's great that we have those fast chargers. But my concern as the average user is not the fastest charger we have. It's what's the average just everywhere, right? That average, in my opinion, needs to increase. The problem is you reach, you wait, you finally put it to charge, and it's like charging at like 8 kilowatts or some nonsense like that. right? And you're like, okay, I can't possibly sit here for 4 hours. And even if it goes up, it goes up, and it goes down, it's variable. Like, what I'm trying to say is, I think that the bigger concern as far as charging is, for me, like, I would buy a car today. If not, if someone told me, hey, you know what, there are some nice fast chargers which are 175, I'd buy it. If someone told me, you know what, anywhere you go, you'll get 50. Do you see what I'm trying to say? I think the average itself is so bad over here that
Yeah.
that until that changes, you cannot buy an
So
EV if you don't have a charger
there's
at
a
home.
funny thing to what you said when I started driving an electric car, back in the
Okay.
16-17 time, the fast chargers were almost empty because there was nobody there. But the thing is, almost all of the first fast chargers are all at 50. So you in the UAE, we really don't have anything lower than that. But the reason that you're experiencing what you're doing is the unique conditions of the UAE. It's about 45, 47 outside
I
right
know
now.
this. I'm aware
These
of this.
chargers deal a lot and they need
Right.
regular maintenance because the fans in them, which keep the chips cool, can no longer do their job and the screens usually time out. And a lot of the issues with a lot of the early screens where they just go blank and you just don't know how to control them. So
Right.
I think
So
those two, yeah, so we're learning, I think, as we come around.
also,
But
we
this
should be
is
very careful at this point because this is Sam's trigger topic. As you notice, he's getting redder in the face. This is Sam's absolute trigger topic. He loses his mind. I actually have it on video of him just losing his mind on camera. So we should be very careful. But I mean, continue.
now more. There is for me in the fast charging in the UAE, especially Dubai, is not the charger themselves, is the taxi corporate.
Okay.
Today, when you go to the fast charger, it can be 50 kilowatts, it can be 25, because once again, you don't charge the whole battery. You're not charging the whole 100 kilowatts. You will need to charge what you drove before or what you needed, your 50% or your 25% or whatever. But today, when you go to a fast charger, wherever you go in Dubai, you have a line of taxi or Uber drivers waiting in lines to take these chargers. Until this problem is not solved, the end user, which is us, will have an issue with fast charging. To go back to the 3-pin charger for Salman, that's perfect. That's how I charge mine, because I drive 80 kilometers a day top. I charge it. If I need to go to Abu Dhabi and come back, lucky enough, ADNOC have better network than Dubai.
Yeah.
Lucky enough. So I'll go to ADNOC. Yes, it's pricey. If you order the 120 kilowatts, it's about 1 dirham per kilowatt, which is the same price as petrol at the end of the day, or almost. So in that case, what's the point to take an EV in the first place?
Yeah.
So the TCO, the total cost of ownership, doesn't make sense. That's why the push has to come from, once again, the providers, which is the government at the moment.
Yeah. And I think I'd like to add to Amin's first point is from a psychological standpoint, as an ICE vehicle owner, which we most are, that mentality of just charging for what you drive. You don't go to the petrol pump and go, oh, I just went down to Mall of the Emirates and I'm coming back. I'll just put 10 dirhams of fuel in, or I'll put 50. Like, it's a real, head twister in that regard of changing your mindset.
But also, it's one of those things, right? How are you going to possibly regulate that, right? In the sense that...
It's not about regulating, but it's like, if your consideration is there as an ownership, I would literally look at it to say, these are the options that's there, this is the budget that I have to work with, and sort of map it out as such as, okay, on a daily average, I need to actually go on Google Maps and don't, I think it's 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers. Accurately map it out. Let's say monitor it, take for a week. What do you do? I went for dinner at a friend's place, I went to the mall, I went to work, all of this, and map it out as what your average kilometer requirement is.
For anyone who's listening to Sam right now, you can do this automatically on Google Maps and Apple Maps now in the UAE.
And there is also an amazing tool which is called a better route planner, where you can even choose the car that you drive.
Google Maps has that now. Okay. Oh, you mean the car as in, or like EV versus ICE?
No, that's only for
No,
EVs.
the specific EV, I'm guessing.
The specific EV you choose, the specific trim, and it will give you, so basically in Europe it works better because it tells you what to charge, how long does it take, and how much it costs. But it's not here in the UAE yet.
Of course.
But for example, you can make a route Dubai to Doha in Qatar. It tells you where to stop to charge.
Right.
Very
It's called
nice.
a Better Route Planner. It's a very nice tool. I highly
Okay.
recommend you all look at it.
Okay.
I concur with Amine on that because it even takes in the topography. So if, for example, you're going up a hill, it will take the fact that you
Oh,
will lose more range going up a hill. It's pretty cool.
And
that's
then gain
very
it on the
cool.
other end when you go down.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
That that is
Yeah.
very cool. That's very cool.
The best way
But
to try, you do, for example, Dubai to Jebel Jais,
okay,
and you will see the difference. You do the round
of
trip,
course.
you will see you will
Yeah,
use way more when you go and way less when you come back
of
because of the
course.
uphill and downhill.
Yeah. Jebel Al Jais is really taxing. I was actually telling Sam this recently. The last time I went to Jebel Al Jais, I had a hybrid. I had the Ford F-150 Platinum, and on the way down, the car never actually switched on. It just used its tiny little electric motor and just came down all the way because of how crazy Jebel Al Jais is. But fair enough. All right. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, and it's sort of the last thing in this topic was, we technically did hit this earlier, so we can keep it brief. But how far do you think, and obviously this is very subjective to each person, but how far do you think, let's say between a Tesla and a Polestar, where do you think the winning interior or design on the interior is? Do you think that Tesla is on the right path and all cars will go down that way, or do you think Tesla is the odd one out and most cars will stay looking like regular cars, toggles, buttons, screens, all that?
There's kind of
Salman, you can start.
there's kind of two ways to look at it, right? So Tesla is actually preparing us for a robotaxi future, and that's what Elon Musk has said many a time. So that's the interior that they use kind of makes sense in the driverless future. And
Mm,
but but truly, for a driving experience today, there's a lot of research that has come out that says buttons are far better than touchscreens, and in fact they're a lot less hazardous because you learn where a physical button tends to be, and then
correct.
it's a lot safer pressing it. So I think that for traditional cars that are not going our autonomous future, I think that's going to remain relevant even if it's an EV. And I think the let's say the more smart, advanced cars with probably level 4, level 5 built in would probably go the Tesla route.
Okay, fair. Sam?
I
I mean,
I
who's
personally
ready
don't
to
believe
go?
that Tesla will be the standard because there is something that Tesla you don't have in a car. When all you buy a car, you buy a Porsche, you buy a Mercedes, it's emotions.
Hmm.
When you jump a Tesla, you have no emotions at all.
Hmm. Right. Interesting. Very interesting. Sam?
Yeah. If it's current space and what you got to pick a brand, I'm gonna
Oh,
say
yeah.
no. I would say Zeekr. Honestly, I really like the design. Plenty
You
of
really like the
screens,
X. Yeah.
quality materials, and all of that. Really liked it. But yeah, valid point. It's like it makes sense to say, okay, you want that clean, minimalist, styling to say if we are going to be
Hmm.
driverless. But I think it's going to be a long, long way from a legal standpoint before we get to
Yeah, I
driver.
think so. I think that the driverless is still a way away. I don't think I don't think it's too far. Like, I don't think we're talking about triple digit years, but I think that
And it's not
that
to say
sort of,
technology is not there. The tech is
no, no,
there.
no.
It all
I
comes back
agree.
to
I
a legal
agree.
standpoint.
I agree. I agree with you. But like, Sam, you and me have discussed this many times before. I think that unfortunately, the the passionate space of where people are passionate about vehicles is shrinking very
Yeah.
fast, right? Very, very fast. And a great example of this comes back to a few years ago when Sam, myself, and Abbas drove the MG RX-8, normal ICE car, seven-seater, the size of a patrol or a Land Cruiser. I drove it. I was like, this car's going to sell like hotcakes. Abbas hated it to another level. Sam was indifferent. He's like, yeah, it's a shit drive, but I can see why it would work. And that car made bank for MG in the region. Why? Because no one cared about what the engine was. They just cared about the fact that it was functional, it sat seven people, it looked nice and large, and that was it. And what was the engine, Sam? 2 liter?
Two
Or
liter
some
turbo.
nonsense like that?
2 liter turbo.
Right? 2 liter turbo. So it's one of those things where I think that as that passion reduces, Tesla will, or Tesla like cars will sort of keep taking the lead, because slow and steady, yeah, people will just want to stop driving. It'll just want to be one of those like sit the Minority Report kind of thing, like sits close and you're on some sort of weird highway that just does its own thing. But
I'm, I'm gonna put my sustainability hat on for a second, and
okay.
just the thing is that a lot of, if you look at Gen Z, the surveys that are coming out, a lot less of them want to drive on the roads.
Mm,
Yeah.
So
mm,
they would rather take an Uber or metro. And I think you're seeing a general distaste for driving coming up I would say, is a trend. And so I think the autonomy kind of fits in with the trend of not wanting to, own a car or not wanting to deal with the hassle of driving. And I think that in that scenario, this kind of thing will have to be accelerated, the development of level 5, level 4, level 5 autonomy. And I think it's not just so much that there will be people who love to drive, they'll continue to drive their cars ICE or EV, and then there
mm.
will be the people there that are going to be well catered with autonomous cars.
Yeah, I agree, because I think that I know so many people who don't drive anymore, right? Who have just given up the concept. I literally was sitting with a friend the other day who was like, I don't want to own a car. I don't want to drive a car. I don't want to sit in a car. Just like I'm happy with my Kareem Plus. And I think that, and this is someone who's not even in the younger generation. This guy's like a few years younger than me. So I think it's just one of those things where it's definitely going to be a trend, and it's unfortunate for the automotive world, but I think it's just where things are going to go.
And actually, there is a new company in China which is booming in terms of robotaxi.
Okay.
It's a joint venture. Baidu is the biggest internet
Yes.
provider in China. It's the Google of China. And they created something called the Moon, inspired by Apollo. It's called Baidu Apollo, and a brand called ArcFox.
Okay.
I saw an ArcFox. Very nice.
Yeah, they launched a robotaxi. And to go more than just about owning the car, the hassle of owning a car in this region, it's a lot. You have to check your car every now and then. I'm going to the garage. Which one do I trust? If I buy second hand, new hand, people are tired of the old this. That's why Tesla is successful. It's everything digital, literally on your sofa in 2 minutes. And like Abbas said earlier, it took him 5 minutes to order his car.
Right.
If we have this, what Tesla invented, will keep the automotive industry as a whole, not the motorsport or the driving fan alive, but the automotive alive. But if you go like the old, I will add another layer to the problem you saw earlier between government and end user is the dealership themselves. Because all the EVs they try to advertise and to sell them like petrol cars, like ICE engine. You have to have a seamless experience into EVs. You can wait 3 months for your car. Tesla, everybody waits 3 months for his car. You have to make it as easy as well, because the Gen Z is not they don't want to drive, they're just lazy. I'm lazy to drive, I'm lazy to order, I'm lazy to take Kareem Plus to order food every night. They don't cook anymore. Is the whole generation, it's a lifestyle that they have. It's a laziness lifestyle.
No, I'm really sorry. No. They don't have a lazy lifestyle. I absolutely vehemently disagree with this.
As a father.
I'm telling you, I apologize, but they do not. This is not lazy. There are services on offer, and they use them.
To cater to your laziness.
No, they're a generation of services. I'm very sorry. We all grew up with our parents telling us we were lazy, because as we had services attached to us, we got them. So this is nothing more than that being it's a trend that's been way longer than just this one generation. That being said, yes, it will continue to be the trend. It will not stop. There will be a point where I think I don't know if Sam was the one I told this to. I firmly believe we will be living a full subscription life. Like everything we have will be some sort of subscription, including our cars. I firmly believe that. But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, please continue.
I was gonna start wrapping things up. Say whatever you have to.
No, I was just saying that I think it generally ties into convenience being a commodity now.
Correct.
That you can sell. And I think that driving is unfortunately just part of it.
Agreed. Owning a car is way more taxing if you are a person who doesn't care about cars, which a lot of people are. A car is a functional tool for a lot of people, and the way people wanted to take care of their cars, like for example, Sam loses his mind every time I tell him the cost of my service, right? Because I'm like, Sam very cutely always tries to teach me, like, listen, all you need to do is this, and all you need to do is this. I was like, buddy, all you're doing is confirming that I'm spending like 1,000 dirhams on a minor service. Like, it's just confirmed. But I think that that's the general trend. Anyway, wrapping this one up, gents, thank you all for your time. Salman, Amine, thank you so much
You're
for your
welcome.
inputs. You suddenly
Thank you
made
for
this
having us.
podcast sound way smarter than it usually does. But thanks very much. We hope to have you guys on soon, maybe for another EV episode on a separate topic. But yeah, thanks very much for coming on, and for everyone listening or watching. We are Tbreak's OneShot. We are available on every platform possible: Podbean, Spotify, Apple, YouTube Music. We are everywhere. If you'd like to interact with us, we are at tbreak.com. That's tbreakdotcom. And thank you very much, and we will see you at the next one.